Well, the time has come and the top achievers for the class of 2025 will be announced at a breakfast that's taking place at the MTN Innovation Centre in Johannesburg today. Now, education experts say that they believe that there is going to be an increase in the pass rate of the 2025 Matric class as compared to the previous year. And then 2024 Matric pass rate was a historic 87.3%, which was a significant increase from the 2023 result of 82.9%, marking the highest national pass rate ever recorded. Let's cross now to SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa for more on what's to be expected. Mbalenhle, good morning. So it is, of course, D-Day for the class of 2025. What can we expect at this morning's breakfast?
Well, certainly it is D-Day for the class of 2025, and not only for those who sat for just the National Senior Certificate, but also the IEB results are expected to be released later on today. And what we do expect is that, we are going to see comparisons between the pass rate between those who sat for the National Senior Certificate as well as those who wrote for the IEB certificate. And we know that historically, the IEB candidates have somewhat performed quite better than the National Senior Certificate, even though there was somewhat of an uptake last year, which, as you have correctly indicated, was the highest uptake in South Africa's history so far. But what you will remember, last year when we spoke to some of the high achievers, we spoke to someone from one of the IEB schools or the private schools who had achieved 100% for mathematics. So it will be interesting to see the top achievers and the magnitude with which they have actually passed this year. So we are going to be expecting those comparisons and those conversations to be happening, and the congratulations as well as the awarding of those top achievers from both the National Senior Certificate as well as the IEB candidates.
And of course, we saw last week, Mbalenhle, the Umalusi, the quality assurance body, giving their stamp of approval, but also just addressing that issue of the leaks that did occur, speaking to the credibility of the overall results, which they, of course, endorse. But what do we know so far in terms of where they are with those results of where the leaks took place?
Well, certainly what we know so far is that there is an internal investigation that is going to continue because it would seem as though, based on the results and the investigations that were carried out by the National Investigation Task Team that was set up in December last year, after the Gauteng Department of Education identified what seemed to be a leak in parts of Pretoria. And this was then isolated to a number of students within the Tshwane region, and this is what came out of those investigations. But what is very important here is that it would seem as though the leak came from within the Department of Basic Education, and that is based on the investigations or the results of the investigation that was carried out. And it would seem as though one of the culprits or the suspected culprits had a child who was also going to be sitting for the National Senior Certificate, and it would seem as though that particular individual brought the paper at home, and then the distribution and circulation of that particular English paper was then followed through from there in terms of the investigations that were done. A report back to the Department of Basic Education was then made public last week, but was then, and we've also seen the Minister of Basic Education just saying that this does not then speak to the credibility of the National Senior Certificate, saying that a few bad apples do not really mar the fact that there are 900,000 candidates who sat and wrote those papers and studied very hard to ensure that they're able to pass and meet the required standards, and therefore the credibility of the National Senior Certificate is still intact. I think it would be interesting to also find out if this also happens within the IEB examination process, and if there have been any leaks historically or ever over there, and how they have managed to keep a tight lid on those exam papers.
Indeed. And Mbalenhle, thanks so much. We'll check in with you again later on as we expect some of the dignitaries to arrive, as well as the people of the moment, which are, of course, the MVPs, the Matric class of 2025 top achievers who will be hosted there at the MTN Innovation Hub by the Department of Basic Education. And, of course, the Minister will be there as well.